Hi there, welcome to DesignSpark's Ask the Expert, and today we're going to be talking to 3M and we're going to be talking about robotics. And returning for a second interview is Dave Nyberg. Hi Dave, do you want to say hello to DesignSpark?
Sure. Hello there. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you for hosting, Greg.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to join us again today. Our previous conversation, we were talking about machine vision. Today we're going to be talking about robotics. Very much synergy between these two technologies. So I just want to explore a few things with you today regarding 3M. So if we're looking at, say, interconnect solutions, what is it that 3M are contributing, in terms of things like signal integrity, system reliability in the robotics environment?
Yeah, thanks. That's a good question to start with. We have quite a few cable assemblies and connectors that would work really well and do work well for a lot of our customers in the robotics environment. The robotics type applications, highly varied. There's robotic applications that are very pre-programmed, static kind of applications that just do one or two things very
Mm.
specifically, all the way up to highly automated robotic applications that really think and do things on their own. And they usually have a component of machine vision capability to them where there's human eyes that can, or mechanical machine vision eyes that act like a human eye to detect the sensories
Hmm.
images around them and make decisions, and and everything in between that. So you always application developers in those spaces have to worry about things like, as you said, signal integrity and some other things that are very unique to robotics, such as potentially high vibration, a lot of dynamic movement in robotic arms, a lot of high flex torsion requirements. There's a continued emphasis around miniaturization, so board space is at a premium, uh, making things small, lightweight, very durable. These can tend to be very rugged environments, and not just the factory automation kind of environments that we're familiar with, but you have robotic type mechanisms moving around. They bump into things. They get jostled. There's a lot of it's a tough application, but we're well suited to meet the needs of the industry, both in connectors and cables.
Yeah, I think obviously when we're talking about the industrial environment, there's probably two areas which we have of prime importance for activity within that industrial arena. One will be your fixed monitoring, for example, on conveyor systems, sensors, that type of thing. Within process automation as well, you've got your process automation components. The world of robotics, there's, like you say, there's a lot more of that dynamic movement. There's a lot to consider when it comes to the robotics as against maybe those kind of like standardized uh, fix and stay in place sensor activity. So from 3M's point of view, we're talking about high flex cabling. What are we looking at in terms of that kind of support for the dynamic movement within the robotics world?
We have a variety of cables available: flat ribbon cable, round cable, and variety of gauges, variety of positions, and so on. And some of that cable for the 3M makes, we're widely known as one of the leading suppliers of very, very high quality cable. And some of it is rated and tested for over 100 million cycles. And that is the type of, of flex durability that I think a lot of these applications are looked for, where you have robotic type equipment moving 24/7 all the time, nonstop, and these factories and users that apply these applications, there's no time for downtime. They want these lines up and running. They can't afford to be replacing cables all the time. So when you test and verify capability at 100 million cycles, that's pretty
Mm.
significant. That's going to last a long time. And then on the machine vision space, specific to what I mentioned earlier around cameras and autonomous type applications, same thing. We have co-express and USB 3 cable assemblies that are tested for 100 million cycles, and we're going to continue to test. I mean, that's 100 million cycles today, but a year from now, obviously the machines are continuing to test. Every day that goes by, we're verifying that these cables last even longer than 100 million cycles, and we'll update our guidelines accordingly. But same thing, machine vision, USB and co-express, very, very high, and along with camera link, very, very high durability cables,
Yeah.
excellent for flex applications.
Yeah, I think in terms of what you're talking about there, 100 million cycles, that I always think when we get into the realms of those numbers, they can be kind of impossible to imagine. For example, in the sense of your lifetime, you're never going to be able to get to 100 million cycles, for example. But I think what you said there about the robotics and the need for the robotics to be reliable, you are talking high stakes environments, and if robots go down, it's not just the cost of the robot being unoperable for a certain period of time. It's the amount that they're adding to the business. So for things like in the automobile industry, for example, if one of those major robots goes down, you're not talking about a couple of $100 or a couple of £100 worth of time down just to fix the issue. You're talking about the tens of thousands of dollars for the time that has to be taken off the assembly line. So I think that's one of the key areas in the robotics where the reliability does come into play. And I just want to understand, you were talking about some of the things that you were kind of innovative over the years, and I just want to talk about your IDC technology. How does that help to reduce downtime and simplify maintenance in industrial robotics, for example?
Yeah, great lead into IDC. So IDC is insulation displacement contact connectors, and we have a variety of those type of connectors. And again, they meet a lot of the requirements of the robotics industries. They're found in a lot of robotics applications even today, and growing. And they're very small. They tend to have small pitch. Mini clamp, 3M mini clamp has only 2 millimeter pitch. We've got other connectors that are down to 1.27 millimeter pitch, so very, very small. Back to that, space is a premium on the boards, on the boards PCB. And the IDC in particular is really nice for maintenance and like a quick swap out, because there's no soldering required. A lot of these applications with robotics, they can open up a panel, access the connector. Say you have a sensor or some kind of component that has burned out or needs to be replaced, you can quickly disconnect with that mini clamp, mini stack, or IDC connector from 3M. You can cut off the sensor or whatever mechanism has failed. You can splice on a new one, and in a matter of seconds, be back up and running and connected back in. Again, no soldering, there's no waste, there's no stripping required. IDC is truly a very, very quick swap out, plug and play, field installable. You can do it in a variety of conditions. You don't need to ship that equipment back to some facility. We have a lot of our customers that use our IDC connectors, and they do swap outs and replacement outdoors. And it's really not unusual at all to do that. So that's really where our IDC technology shines, is in that ease of maintenance, quick swap out in the field installability, very nicely suited for robotics.
Yeah, and I think just playing on that theme of the quick swap out, for example, to get the system back up and running and make sure everything is fine. It reminds me of sort of like the high stakes Formula One, where a car will come into the pits for its tyre change. It still wants to win the race, and you want to get that car back out onto the circuit as quick as possible. Within the industrial world, you want to make sure that you maintain your uptime as much as possible.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things that comes to my mind when I'm talking about robotics, I'm seeing a lot more of the AGVs within the industrial environment, particularly within warehousing. And those kind of robots themselves are becoming a lot smaller, a lot more unobtrusive. If we think about the big robotic arms now we're placing with those guided vehicles, we're placing robots on the factory floor to carry a whole plethora of equipment. The thing that you were talking about there, space design, optimizing board space constraints within robotic systems, we are seeing those spaces becoming sort of like the real estate within the system, as much as we can shrink that down. And I just want to give you a little bit of time to explain to us maybe some of the kind of connectors that you were talking about that save those spaces on the board.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And the equipment, it's not necessarily that the AGVs, as you call them, are getting smaller, but they're becoming more and more sophisticated, where in the same space there's more circuitry and more features being added to this equipment, these devices, these robotic applications all the time. So then that requires that you just need more connectability space on the boards if you're not going to make it any larger. And, I mentioned some of our other connectors that 2 millimeter pitch, 1.27 millimeter pitch. We also have our 451, 452 series is very small. And the advantage there is you can get, with a flat ribbon cable, you can get up to 50 positions in a very small space at 1.27 millimeters. And, just an excellent space saver. And not only that, but there's that series of connectors has latches. They have there's molded on applications which are extremely durable, high strain relief. Again, very well suited for the ruggedness, the harsh environment of these. As you say, in warehouses, those things the floor is uneven. There's a lot of bumping and moving and vibration. You have to have a connector that's secure. You have to have a connector that people can count on. That's not going to come loose and interrupt signal integrity and transmission of that, whatever component is being wired in. So again, another nice feature beyond just the smallness is sometimes small miniaturization can make it a little more difficult on the secure connection, but not with these connectors from 3M, the 451, 452 series. There's a really nice fit.
Yeah, and in terms of sort of like the stable connections within these environments, you can see equipment which is going to be under constant motion, vibration, mechanical stress. And I'm sure from time to time in our own lives, we've wondered, how did this bolt on this piece of equipment become loose? And if that happens for a connector which is, being used to convey either power or communication data, then that becomes much more of an issue. So in terms of sort of like things around cable assemblies and strain relief options, what is it that we're looking at with 3M?
I mentioned the 450, 451, 452 series, excellent fit. But another one is the machine vision, and again, for the application you mentioned in the warehouses, the AGVs, to build equipment like that and to have them truly be autonomous and moving around, they do need some kind of machine or sensory component to understand their surroundings. Is there a forklift crossing in front of me that I need to stop? Obviously, people. You don't want these things running into any people. So you have to have a lot of safety built in for that equipment to see where they're doing. A lot of that is done with machine vision cameras, 3-dimensional cameras that detect spatial activity. And there again, with machine vision, with our USB 3 cable assemblies, they're all provided with a high degree of strain relief. They fit well in tight spaces. We have angled connectors, again, for the tight spaces if the strain relief isn't enough for bendability at the connector point. And very importantly, the screw locks. All of our USB cables are available with screw locks to really tighten down that connection point from cable to board and make sure you have a very solid, secure connection long term without needing to check it or verify it. Those connections are very, very tight. Same with CoExpress. Our micro BNC and BNC connectors have a quarter turn hex nut kind of connection. Very tight, very secure. No requirement there to recheck or anything. They're very, very durable over the long term. And these are the kind of things that are very important to the equipment builders as they spec in their products and make sure that connectability is secure long term.
Yeah, I think you're touching on there on the equipment builders, and this is a little bit more of an area just maybe want to explore a little bit further in terms of these equipment builders, we're looking in certain cases, there's going to be a high level of customization for each application, particularly things where we've been talking about space constraints, etc., extra cabling, strain relief, that type of thing. In terms of 3M, is there anything that you could offer in terms of, your molded cable assemblies? Are there any specific needs from robotics manufacturers to the integrators, for example?
I think, again, it goes back into, not just the quality products, but customization and in particular length, because a lot of what you were saying earlier around tight spaces and constraints, cable, there's no extra room for extra cable in in this equipment.
Mm.
And the precision of the cable length is very important. And, um, fortunately, 3M offers customized cable for all of these applications. We have a very strong channel like RS that can sometimes cut custom cable to very, very specific lengths down to millimeters and provide that kind of precision so that there's no extra weight. There's no extra cable because it wouldn't fit in the equipment. Cable can generate heat. There's if you have cable coiled up all over the place, you can generate a lot of unnecessary heat that might affect other circuits. Yeah. So the precision of the customization is equally as important as a lot of the other features we're talking about in 3M, and our strong channel like RS is available to provide that.
Yeah, and what I really take into consideration, we spoke previously on another interview about machine vision and robotics. It's the way that 3M actually approach the industry, and it's not just a case of being a product provider for the applications. It's becoming more of like the solution provider for those applications. For example, we were talking about things there with mating cycles, connectivity, for example, being robust. These are the things which do add value to the end application, particularly when you're, like we say, in those high stake games where you actually want to get a process and production facilities to be both autonomous, but also to be really effective on their output. And as you were talking there, obviously we mentioned that we have this previous interview about machine vision. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the kind of innovation that you guys have brought to the machine vision world with your connectivity. So, just maybe for the viewers, do you want to give a little bit more on maybe USB free vision and Coax Express?
Sure. And I've already touched on some of the features like high flex, secure connections, so on and so forth. But with USB, one of the features that's a really important one with our USB is longer length. Now, for robotics, that might not be come into play as much, but your example earlier about line scans and some of the sensory components that tend to be a little longer distance from where they're transmitting to, that can also be true with even some robotics applications where you have really long robotic arms. You might have those robotic arms or robotic apparatuses in equipment or in an area that's protected, that's shielding, painting applications, whatever it might be. So you might need a really long length cable coming from that camera all the way back to the control center where everything's being controlled. And our USB cable assemblies, they're some of the longest passive copper cable assemblies in the industry. Very strong, durable connectors on each end, strong cable, able to withstand, again, the 100 million cycles. And we can transmit links up to 10 meters or even beyond 10 meters for some equipment. And that's really unheard of in the USB world, where a lot of applicators and engineers tend to think of USB. If you get beyond 2 to 3 meters, you really can't consider USB as an option. But we've really opened that up to the industry now, where if you have a USB standard format, we've got a solution for you. And I think Co-Express, in a similar manner, Co-Express, you tend to give up a lot of distance for durability, but those cables that are tested and rated for 45 million cycles, or even some of our longer length cable of 10 to 15 million cycles, you can get quite a long length, maybe 15 meters for some of that cable that really opens the door where you don't have to trade off durability if you need a long length. You can have the best of both worlds there with Co-Express, and that's one of the nice features we're bringing to the industry.
Yeah, and I think with both of those examples, it's the level of flexibility for the end user as well. So, as you were talking about with the longer length with USB, I've seen that, within automation, where you've got these robots which, as soon as you start getting closer to them, they will start to close down, but they're actually quite a bit away from the main process, and they need that
Yep.
level of communication. So, yeah, I see that quite clearly within industry. But there's also another thing which is really topical at the moment, and it's to do with the way, products are manufactured. And what I'm hearing a lot now from suppliers is the role in the material science, the expertise in driving the innovation and the reliability in interconnect solutions. And I don't know if you just want to maybe talk about some of the material science related to your connectors, for example.
Sure, I could. And 3M is known for our innovation around material science. And when you really get down to it, you can get on even the RS website. There's multiple options for all the things we're talking about here: IDC connectors, cable assemblies, cable, USB 3, Co-Express, multiple operations or options. But what it really comes down to, where 3M some can distinguish us with competitors, is in that material science. We use only some of the best grade copper in the world, and you think
Hmm.
about it, the copper is really key to a lot of these applications for signal transmission, integrity, high speed signal without interruption. And that choice of copper, not everybody's the same. Not all manufacturers view it that same way. We're not, our cable assemblies are not the lowest cost, and we're not ever going to say they are. But we continually get customers that tell us we couldn't get anything else to work. We're very happy that we found 3M cable assemblies because yours work in these tough applications where nothing else works. And that's because we do not compromise around the material science and beyond just the materials. It could be the polycarbonates, the copper, how it's manufactured, the quality of the manufacturing, the precision, the quality control in the factory, along with the rigorous testing we've done. These are the kind of things when you buy a 3M product, these are the things that you're getting with every purchase of the product, is that dependability, reliability, and the material science innovation that goes into each and every interconnect product we manufacture.
Yeah, and David, I do sometimes think that it's overlooked in terms of the materials which go into connectivity, for example. And when I first started out in this industry, I had a, a guru who was a complete geek when it came to connectivity. And he sat me down for a long time to explain to me the difference in the materials and the compromises that you make if you take cheaper versions. And you can
Mm-hmm.
see it today, even in the modern world, with how we're integrating with our personal equipment, our kind of smartphones, for example, our tablets, our PCs. You can tell when you have a really good connectivity compared to really bad connectivity. And a lot of that is down to the way that the terminations are interacting, but also the materials which are used within that. And I think, we started off this conversation, we were talking about signal integrity. If you want a system to be have great integrity, then you're going to have to make sure that you're choosing the best connector possible and the best solution. And a lot of that does come down into the materials which are used within the connectors also. Would you agree?
Agree completely. Agree completely. And you can relate this also back to your earlier points around downtime and the what's on the line on these factories of not being able to um, the costs associated with if a line is down on these manufacturing production lines. Again, you can there's cheaper alternatives, but would you really risk um, tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000 or whatever it might be, $1 million, maybe even in semicon industry, you have those lines go down. It's amazing. I mean, you're talking $1 million in no time,
Yeah.
just for a few hours. And all over for instance, a cable assembly that's $100 or $200. I mean, it's just, why compromise? Why compromise there? And our customers continually reinforce that point that they're not going to mess around here with cable assembly. Most of a lot of our customers, they want the best, and that's why they buy from 3M, because they're dependable and reliable. We've got the global tech support to back that up and provide that support, and we're happy to do that. And again, really, there's you're taking a chance there when
Yeah.
you compromise. And yes, you can do it. And your example is a good one. How many of us have, we're transferring things from our phones to our host computer or moving data around, and you plug in a cable, and we've all seen it. Sometimes you're like, why is this taking so long? This is like this cable, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then other times you're like, wow, I can't believe how fast that was. Well, that's probably exactly to your point. You're using a different cable. Pay attention and you'll realize, okay, there's a higher quality cable here. That's exactly why you're able to transmit and transfer data from your personal devices much faster sometimes. It's all in the cable and the connectivity.
Yeah, and I do honestly believe, in terms of what we were talking about with signal integrity, that if you're in industry, it does pay to make sure that your whole system, you're choosing the best components for that system. If you look at installed infrastructure, for example, which costs millions of pounds, it's a false economy to then try to save a couple of bucks on some connectors, for example, and you're undermining the integrity of your infrastructure. So in terms of 3M support for global development and performance of interconnector systems, we are seeing critical applications in robotics, which are making sure that everything is working to its nth degree, and 3M is a big part of that. So is there anything you just want to mention in finishing, tech support products, for example? 3M all over the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think just again, reinforcing the global coverage. We have application development engineers and R&D people, salespeople all over the world. You can easily find us on our website and quickly message us with Ask 3M or Ask the Expert. Obviously, RS, you've got links to all of our things on your sites. You do a good job of relaying. You could any customer can easily inquire with RS on the product you see on the RS website and get that message to them, and they'll get it to us. And we have excellent support with our channel and your field people. And the bottom line is we're here to help, and we love that customer engagement, because what almost always happens is when we get a discussion going on one thing that was the point of inquiry, it kind of morphs into a discussion about a variety of things, and we learn a lot from customers about where your pain points are, what's working, what's not working, what you'd like to see in the industry, what you'd like to see from 3M. And that really drives our innovation in the future. We've had a new number of products developed that really started from customer conversations, understanding where things are going in the industry and what the needs are and what changes they'd like to see in products we even have. So that's it really starts with the customer, and we're proud that we have global support all around the world, as you say, to interact with customers face to face and have that dialogue.
Fantastic. Dave, it's been really great talking to you today about robotics. And, I mentioned our previous conversation that we had around machine vision. I think these two, are really good hand-in-hand interviews that if our viewers are interested in, go and check out the previous interview we did on machine vision. And also, this one around robotics. It's been great to have you back with us today to share your knowledge and experience. So yeah, thanks for joining us, Dave, and maybe we can have you on DesignSpark again for a third time.
Sure, happy to participate, and thank you again, Greg, for the opportunity here to chat with you about these things, and look forward to continuing to work together with RS to grow the business.